it's Drybear. And we're continuing our series of deep diving into the wealth of changes in Path of Exile 2.3. We've covered the sorceress changes, we covered the global changes, and we covered the content changes, but I want to keep going with kind of talking about what impacts individual classes in general. And though I have Hunter's gameplay on screen, I want to use new footage once we get it, once it's actually available and we actually have the patch live, but I want to continue the series by talking about Monk, probably one of the most anticipated classes for .3, primarily because a lot of their builds are changing. Acolyte of Chayula, Chayula is more fun to say. The Shadow Monk is getting better. Invoker is getting weaker and stronger in different ways, but also the biggest ticket item for Monk in general is now we finally have unarmed Monk. So if you have this deep-seated need to punch enemies in the face, you now can with the Hollow Palm technique for Monk. Before we dive in, there are new Twitch drops available for .3 Path of Exile 2 starting on the 29th. So you just have to go to a streamer that's streaming live on twitch.tv, keep their stream open, collect the drops, and you're good to go. I will be streaming a whole bunch of Path of Exile 2.3 on my channel, so if you want to go to twitch.tv/Drybear, you can get a cool helmet, you can get a cool cloak, and you get a cool clam stash cosmetic for the drops. There's also a support a streamer campaign, which just kind of encourages people to help support content creators. If you want to, you can gift 2 subs on Twitch subscriptions. They can't be primes, I believe. They have to be full subscriptions, but gift, well, actually I think you can prime and then a Twitch subscription. Ask me once I'm live, once we've verified. But you'll be able to do this, give 2 subscriptions to a Twitch streamer, and then you will gain the sweet looking portal effect here, which is like, I don't know, I get like crazy like Ori jungle forest owl kind of Ghibli vibe. I don't even know why I'm getting it. It's very tribal. It's got the swirl on it, but it's a cool portal effect. So you can get the clam stash, the abyssal helmet themed for the league, the abyssal cape, as well as the portals if you gift 2 subs. I will be live on Twitch if you want to choose me for it, but you don't have to if there's another streamer you want to give it to. Just make sure they are in the Path of Exile 2 category when you gift the subs or when you're watching them for the drops. Free stuff is always cool. And the star of the hour is the punchy hollow palm technique. So this is what a lot of people are pretty excited about. So they said that specifically this will be in the northwest corner, like northwest of the Monk starting location, which makes it kind of move closer to like Shadow Witch Sorceress and kind of away from Ranger, Huntress, Mercenary, etc. if it's going to be northwest. Now, that doesn't mean how far northwest. It could be slightly northwest, but it is a new keystone that allows you to punch. So what does it do? It uses quarterstaff attacks with no weapon equipped. So while you have this keystone, if you have nothing in your hand, you just punch. And again, remember, they put in default stats for your unarmed attacks while you have this, so you can scale without needing a weapon. Unarmed got implemented in the game with its own stats on that as well. So it says can attack as though using a quarterstaff while both of your hand slots are empty. Unarmed attacks that would use your quarterstaff damage gain instead physical damage based on their skill level, because it has to scale off something. 1% more attack speed per 25 item evasion rating on equipped armor items. So it encourages you to go with an evasion build, kind of drunken master brawler fighter. And it gives 0.1% crit chance per 10 item energy shield on equipped armor. So it means that you can get attack speed if you go evasion, you can get crit chance if you go with energy shield, and you can do a hybrid approach to get a little bit of both if that's what you're looking for, on top of having its own scaling as well. So this is kind of like the big money ticket item that people like about Monk, finally being able to punch people in the face. And of course, this has a lot of implications for other skills that you'll be able to use while using quarterstaff skills with nothing in your hands. Now, as I did with the Sorceress video, let's go over the skill changes and general changes to Monk that are coming into the game. Obviously, disclaimer here, it is Path of Exile 2. There aren't major, like, hard restrictions on what you can and can't use other than minimum requirements like stats for it. So while some of these are essentially sourced from the Monk and the Quarterstaff and the Monk tree, some of these will just be widely applicable. I just think it makes more sense to talk about the classes and their themes in one grouping. And if you're someone who wants to play Monk, we'll go over that in general. So the first change to talk about here is Killing Palm, Staggering Palm, Shattering Palm, Hand of Chayula, and Frozen Locus, which are all hand attacks, will now deal damage based on equipped quarterstaff and by default require a quarterstaff to be used. Why are they doing this? Is because they're adding in the Hollow Palm technique, which allows you to punch things without a quarterstaff equipped, and they're also adding in a hand, like unarmed option when you have this as a default weapon. It treats your, no weapon in your hand as a default weapon. They gave it a base crit chance. They gave it a base weapon damage and base scaling and all of that. So in order to make it go in line with that change, they're taking all of these punch attacks, which really you were holding a quarterstaff in your hand, but you were still punching them with all of these. They're making it so these are now required quarterstaff abilities, and they deal damage based on the equipped quarterstaff, so that if you want to convert them back into their punchy, you'll have to pick up the new hollow palm. Next up is a minor change, but one worth mentioning. Frozen Locus creates ice crystals on the ground. They have done a game-wide change that makes it so they don't really want you spawning ice crystals or ice walls and detonating them instantaneously. They want there to be a little bit of a delay. And so across the board, which includes Frozen Locus, ice crystals now deal 80% less damage if you detonate them within the first 0.5 seconds. So they want you to create multiple and combo off of it rather than spawn, detonate, spawn, detonate, spawn, detonate, or create something that detonates them and spawn them inside of it. So they want you to have a little bit more a thought process going into that. It's worth mentioning. Next up is changes to Glacial Cascade. They've been kind of going through the game, and they want the payoff skills to be a little bit more deliberate. So what they're trying to do is they're trying to create an ecosystem where there are damage throughput skills, there are utility skills that apply buffs, debuffs, benefits, or trigger things, and they also want payoff skills to be a little bit more deliberate. And they kind of felt like, it seems like, I don't know if they said this deliberately, but through all the patch notes this shows up a lot. It seems like they don't like they don't like some of the skills being payoff in general, or also just making things scale better. So right now with Glacial Cascade, it will consume freeze on an enemy to deal 350% more damage. That is being removed and split into two parts. It will now consume freeze on non-unique enemies, still a payoff skill, to deal 150% more damage to the target. So it does a little bit less to normal enemies, non-unique enemies, which isn't really a huge deal in the most part, except for rares maybe. But they're making it so it will consume freeze on unique enemies to, instead of doing 350% more damage, it does 500% more damage, which is pretty big. And I think in general, they felt like, and I agree with this, it felt like the requirement of being able to heavy stun or freeze or even just apply status ailments to unique boss enemies was pretty intense, and the payoff you got for it wasn't that great in general. So they're trying to make it so that the status ailment buildup, especially for freeze, is now more reliable, but also gives you more payoff. So when you Glacial Cascade a unique enemy that is frozen, you will get 500% more damage this time, with less on non-unique for that across the board. They also made the burst radius go up by 0.1 meters, so 0.5 to 0.6, and the final burst radius went up from 0.7 meters to 1.2. So Glacial Cascade in general, I think this is an overall net gain. Bigger radius on the explosion, bigger radius on the burst, and you get more damage on bosses, which in my opinion makes a lot more sense. You might have some situations where you did less than before, though you still have the new broken open support gem system. So it might be that you're just overall better on Glacial Cascade, but I think this is a good trade-off that makes it feel pretty good. Next is a cool change to Killing Palm. This was one of the many ways to get power charges, and it was from culling. If you don't know what culling is, when an enemy drops to a certain low HP percentage threshold, you'll see, like right there, you see that little blue dot. When you see that blue dot on them, it means that they can be culled, and if you use a skill that has culling on it, it will instantly execute them, and you'll get some kind of benefit. Usually, in the case of Killing Palm, you will gain a power charge, but it kind of got a little cumbersome, especially since you would spend power charges like crazy initially. And so when you have that, having one charge for a cull, sometimes you would miss the cull. It got kind of weird. So they're just trying to make Killing Palm be a little bit more viable and more reliable as well. And the way they're doing this is they're scaling it based on the type of enemy that you're culling. Now, before the patch, it's one charge when you cull anything. After the patch, it will still be one power charge when you cull a normal enemy. However, if you cull a rare enemy, it'll give you 2 power charges. And if you cull a boss, it'll be 3 power charges. So a little bit more reliable, and also means that you can kind of pay attention to that little blue highlight on an enemy. If they're rare, maybe you can get a couple extra power charges that you didn't have before, which I think overall is a nice win. Next up is Stormwave. This one is kind of a quality of life, but it might be a damage increase if you get really close to the target. They're just making it so Stormwave, which is the one where you swing your quarterstaff and a big lightning projectile flies forward, it now will additionally hit targets to either side of your character. The range isn't crazy far, but it's quite nice so that when you're surrounded by enemies and casting Stormwave, you used to have to back up quite a bit to make sure that you could hit all enemies. Like, you'd funnel them into a cone shape so you could hit them. Now that it hits enemies on either side of you, it means that when you're surrounded or there's trash mobs or whatever, if you're aiming at the boss, you'll still be able to chip away at the mobs next to you, which again isn't a massive change, but it is quite nice. Next up is Vaulting Impact, and it's safe to say that pretty much across the entire game, Daze as an effect, or even just like wind/physical damage for Monk, was pretty bad. Like, it just, the amount of effort you go through to make Daze apply, and then once Daze is on there, the benefit that you get for having that debuff on there, and of course most of the physical/wind based abilities for Monk were pretty bad unless they were used for a different build or as a builder for something else. So Vaulting Impact is like the big flippity-doo-dah slam attack that you have. Now they're making Vaulting Impact actually vault. What a crazy concept. So now when you're using Vaulting Impact, not only does it have the movement element that it's always had, but it now also jumps over enemies and small amounts of terrain. So like maybe little tombstones or little clips on an edge or a little bush or some kind of collision or whatever, it'll jump right over those. So now you have the ability to jump over enemies and small amounts of terrain using the vault ability when you vault when you're quarterstaff. But it also comes with a little bit of camera changes to help support the motion to make it smoother, because you do kind of go up into the air and come back down. They've also increased the damage. This is the damage at top end. I'm not going to include the ranges because I think it's more confusing. So at the highest end for the Vaulting Impact, the damage is going up from 405% base to 422% at base as well. And they're kind of doing this across the board, but it does affect Monk, which does have a lot of applications of Daze. They're kind of just giving up, saying, hey, people don't want to build up to Daze. It's not enough of a benefit to do it. So they're kind of doing, the ability to just apply Daze. A lot of the things that you're getting in the game now in .3 will just literally like on hit apply Daze, and then the target is dazed, which is super fun because now Vaulting Impact has a way to interact with a target that is dazed. And that is when you are vaulting into a target that has Daze, it will now cause echoes of damage to ripple on that target in addition to the Vaulting Impact damage until the Daze is gone. So you can instantly daze a target with several other abilities that Monk has or other classes have. Target is dazed, and then if you vault into the target, you get bonus echoed damage until that Daze is consumed, which is pretty cool. Next, Wave of Frost now freezes enemies that are primed to freeze. Pretty simple. And Wind Blast, which is the ability that just does a gust of wind and shoves enemies backwards. Now it does Daze on hit. Instead of causing Daze buildup, remember what I was mentioning where they just didn't like the fact that Daze just wasn't enough of a payoff for a buildup style effect? A lot of the effects in the game now just apply Daze. Like, you use it and the targets are dazed, and that's it. So Wind Blast is one of them. Now it dazes on hit. As soon as you use it, the targets are instantly dazed, and it no longer causes Daze buildup. So that's the thing there. So you can Wind Blast and then Vaulting Impact a few times to get those echo damage, and then go back to Wind Blast to reapply Daze, yada yada. Next, let's talk about the Ascendancy changes. And again, this said nothing of like the global changes that are coming to the game in general, but they're reworking. There's a lot of reworks for the Acolyte of Chayula, which just had so many problems, it's kind of ridiculous. Easily one of the least played Ascendancies in the game, and had tons of issues, and usually you were kind of like a gimped version of another class. You could play a chaos damage Acolyte of Chayula in .1 and .2. However, you pretty much were just going into like the chaos damage of a witch tree while not being a witch, and there's just all these things going on. So let's dive into the Ascendancy changes for Invoker to start out with. The first one is and scattered them to the winds in the bottom right of the Invoker Ascendancy tree. This is just now getting better. It now just does higher base damage for all 3 elements for elemental expression on that skill in general. So it's just a flat net gain a buff. Next, they're changing up Faith is a Choice, which grants the skill Meditate. They just want it to be easier to use with more benefit. So in this case, Meditate as an option here. If you remember, every time I think about Meditate, I just think about Elon Musk playing the game. But we have Faith is a Choice. It grants Meditate, and the Meditate effect is being buffed. So Meditate cooldown reduced from 10 seconds to 7 seconds, so a much shorter cooldown. That's quite nice. 30% reduction, that's great. And the cooldown from at max rank from 8.1 to 5.1. So a nice reduction in the range of cooldown options that you can have for Meditate. And now it also grants, instead of 28% energy shield recharge at max, it now grants 100%. So shorter cooldown and grants more energy shield recharge while still maintaining its normal functionality. Again, a nice buff. Moving on to our spicy, delicious Chalupa, the shadow variant of Monk that had so many issues. There's some big changes here that are worth mentioning, and hopefully at the end of the day, when we get to play it, it ends up being really, really cool. So what are they doing with Acolyte Chalupa? Starting with reality rending here. So this is the old .2 version of the tree, reality rending, which has a chance to gain various amounts of extra chaos damage. Now, reality rending is being renamed to Sap of Nightmares, and it no longer grants a chance to gain damage as extra chaos. It now gains Leech, based on chaos damage and physical damage. Honestly, there were plenty of ways to get it, and this one just felt super RNG and very random, but being able to get Leech, I think, is kind of an interesting option, and there's some other changes in the tree you'll see in a second that hopefully help balance this out. Now we gotta dive into the darkness or the Flames of Chayula, like the darkness mechanic for the meter, as well as the Flames of Chayula, those little things that you get. So there are currently 3 different versions of the Flames of Chayula, and there's some things that you can do to amplify or alter them in general. So in this case, you get like red, blue, and purple. One gives bonus damage, one gives mana, one gives HP. So pretty straightforward there. Lucid Dreaming is getting reworked. It used to just give you double the duration of Flames of Chalupa on you. So when you have those flames floating around your body, you have them collected, it just doubles the duration of it. That's all it really did before. Now it's being reworked, so Lucid Dreaming no longer provides any flat benefits, so it's not going to double the duration on its own. However, it's going to split into a multi-choice node where you can specify which flame type you want. So again, we're losing the crazy RNG of you get a variable amount of chaos damage when you deal hits and all of that, and you got like this RNG of which color of flame you got was random as well, and you just get this varying effect of how effective you were in combat. So now Lucid Dreaming now by itself will be a choice node. You either choose life, mana, or power, and it makes all the flames you get either red, blue, or purple, again giving you life, mana, or bonus chaos damage. I kind of feel like everyone's just gonna pick purple. I feel like there's definitely other sources of getting mana and HP, though maybe this opens the path to be able to do various builds. Like maybe you get damage elsewhere and then you use like, you get life flames, like the red flames to heal yourself, or you get blue flames to give yourself mana, and maybe that balances out. It's always nice to have options, but at least now you can guarantee which flame color you want. So essentially you get to choose which flame color instead of having RNG on it, which is pretty nice. So I'm guessing most people are just going to choose purple flames for the extra damage, but maybe there are builds that want to play around with other options there as well. Next up, Waking Dream, which gives you Into the Breach, a really cool, fun, thematic ability that just didn't quite hit the mark in some cases, or most cases in general. So Into the Breach is getting changed. So now it will grant remnants spawned by supported skills have increased effect into that as well, which is kind of a nice little change there. There are a lot more remnants you can spawn in .3 than in .2, so hopefully this gives us more value. And also means you can probably play around with infusions and some other remnant effects that will kind of benefit this playstyle in general. Next, let's talk about darkness, because in the bottom right side of here for the Chalupa, you would basically choose Embrace the Darkness, which would kill off your spirit. Like you would have no spirit, you couldn't reserve anything, whatever, and all of your spirit then gets converted into darkness, a new mechanic, a new resource. However, there were some awkwardnesses with building up darkness in general, and also the fact that sometimes you wanted to go to Grasp of the Void, or even you wanted to go down here, but you couldn't without killing your spirit off, right? Like this is a required node to reach these other nodes, and so you would be forced to take this choice. So what they're doing here is they're going to make some changes in this area for darkness in general, starting with Grasp of the Void, which now in dot 2 gains 1% of damage as extra chaos damage per 20 unreserved darkness. So when you have darkness and it's not reserved, you get bonus chaos damage from that. Now, Grasp of the Void has been renamed to Illusory Void, and it no longer requires Embrace the Darkness, which means this one right here. So I'm guessing they're going to add a connecting node here and then kill this one. That's probably what they're going to do. Or maybe it comes from here instead, like from the normal start point, so you can kind of choose between these. But they're basically making it so you can get to Grasp of the Void, now renamed to Illusory Void, without having to kill off your spirit if you don't want to, that sort of thing. It also no longer provides 1% extra chaos per unreserved darkness. The reason that they had to force you to get Embrace the Darkness was because Grasp of the Void wouldn't work if you didn't have darkness as a mechanic. So you had to take Embrace the Darkness to convert your spirit into darkness, and then you can get the benefit from Grasp of the Void, which wasn't really that much of a benefit in the first place in general. So now it no longer grants that buff. It no longer requires this node. It'll be connected probably here or here, so you can get to it however you want. And it grabs a new skill called Void Illusion. Now, they gave us a description and they showed a little bit of footage on it for this new Void Illusion skill. It sounds like you're going to be able to create void remnants when you dodge roll, which will explode, dealing chaos damage. So rather than gaining a small amount of extra chaos damage when you have darkness, it now allows you to have this cool new skill that you can add, and when you dodge roll you get remnants. It's possible that they end up reworking this a little bit when it goes live. Maybe you don't have to dodge roll, maybe not. They did a very loose description of it, so until we see it in game in the full version, we don't know. I can't tell you exactly what it does with confidence, but the way they described it and the way they showed it is that when you have this equipped and you dodge roll, it will create a void illusion in the location, and that will explode, dealing chaos damage. So it's another way to add a new skill to your build and be able to modify it and benefit from it, which I think just makes Chayula more interesting. Now, along with this change, they are reworking Embrace the Darkness as well. Well, not reworking, they're buffing it. So basically, the way this worked is currently, when Darkness Reservation, when you take damage or whatever, it lasts for 10 seconds. And this was a little bit long because, you would build up a whole bunch of Darkness Reservation from taking damage, and then the fight would end, and then you would get into the next pack, and then you would take more damage, and it just got to the point where it was kind of hard to manage because the duration of it was so long. So now they're making the duration of the reserved darkness from 10 seconds to 5 seconds, which should make it mean that if you're actively taking damage, you're reserving darkness. However, if you break combat for a much more reasonable amount of time at 5 seconds instead of 10 seconds, you can get that darkness back for whatever your purposes are in that sort of case, but it just means it's not going to kind of overlap as much as it did. Which, if you are a knower, if you're one of the 2% of people of all Path of Exile 2 players that actually played Acolyte of Chayula, you'll know that you could get that benefit already by getting this node here, Inner Silence. 50% reduced darkness reservation duration. So this node would allow you to take the 10 seconds and put it to 5 seconds by having that there. So what they're doing is they're reworking it so that's kind of rolled into Embrace the Darkness by default, and now Inner Silence has been renamed to Deepening Shadows. It no longer grants reduced darkness reservation duration. Instead, it now grants maximum darkness per 1% of chaos resistance. Chaos resistance is a great thing to get in general. There's a lot of very dangerous boss enemies that do chaos damage, so you want to get chaos resistance pretty much exclusively for endgame builds in general. But now you can, now you have the built-in, like, Inner Silence is now rolled into Embrace the Darkness, and this now grants you additional maximum darkness, which gives you a lot more options to play around with. Mana Leech recovers based on other damage types. Damage as well as physical. Next up, Ravenous Doubts up here in the top right corner. This one makes it so Mana Leech recovers based on other damage types, damage as well as physical, so it gives you more leech. However, it's being renamed and reworked. So Ravenous Doubts is now Inner Turmoil. I have to add dramatic effect. It no longer grants Mana Leech, but instead you get 1 volatility on when you apply an elemental ailment. So you actually gain volatility. However, this is a very loose description that I'm hoping is taken at wholesale value. In the patch notes, they mentioned that when you have the new Inner Turmoil, it grants immunity to damage taken from volatility. And this isn't the only source of volatility, by the way. There's other sources of volatility. There's like one like right over here somewhere. Is this it? Am I blind? I might be blind. It's something, it's like right over here somewhere, or maybe one of these over here. So you have the ability to gain volatility, and then you can gain benefits based on that volatility that you have as well, which means you can kind of build it up. However, this will allow you to gain volatility naturally when you apply elemental ailments, and it makes it so you take no damage from volatility when it explodes, which means that not only can you get volatility here from the new node, but you can also gain volatility from the other sources, knowing that you're kind of immune to the darkness. And I hope that that's actually how it's implemented. It's described very loosely here. We'll have to verify that once we're in game and with the patch is live, but that creates kind of an interesting angle, especially if you're doing like, you know, whether you're doing CI or not CI, that sort of thing. But having this as an option, I think, at the very least, even if it's not super effective initially, it is interesting, far more interesting than Ravenous Doubts. So we're on this rampage of just reworking, replacing, removing, and reconnecting all of the nodes in Chayula. It really goes to show the symptoms of how bad Chayula was off before, but we're not done yet. So we just reworked this node. Well, we reworked the nodes over here. Let's rework another one. Why not? So now we're up here to consuming questions. This used to be so you could not recharge energy shield, but mana leech effects also recover energy shield. So you lose the recharge, but then you get mana leech turned into energy shield. Remember when I told you, I don't know if it was this video or not, but they're trying to make it so that people rely on a recharge energy shield more than just getting it in general, and just gives you more options. So it's no longer consuming questions. You no longer have any questions. It's now unraveling. No longer grants the recharge energy shield from Mana Leech. It now grants chaos damage from hits, contributes to ignite, freeze, and shock chance. So you can already see the synergy here, right? Because those are all elemental ailments. And remember, we're reworking Ravenous Doubts into a thing that allows you to gain volatility when you apply elemental ailments. And then right after that is a new node that says that when you deal chaos damage, you build up elemental ailments. Boom, 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 we've got synergy already. So that's pretty cool. It means that the defensive option is kind of moved further down to the tree here, and now we have more options for elemental chaos damage builds through the Chayula, with this being able to apply ignite, freeze, and shock all at once. And that's what we've got for the monk changes today. Some pretty cool stuff, and I think honestly just getting more reworks to the ascendancy trees is great. Obviously the game-wide changes that affect other things are going to be really strong as well, but I think there's some cool stuff that you could do in here now with monk, and that's why a lot of people are excited. You can see it just punching and doing stuff there. So let me know if you're starting monk in .3 for Path of Exile 2, and also if there's other thoughts or build ideas you have on the monk that other people might enjoy. Drop those down in the comments as well. If you found value in today's video, leave a like down below, leave a comment for the algorithm to help this video get seen by more people, and don't forget to check out my other channels for other content and other stuff and other things.